All right, welcome everyone to another episode of Not So Serious Science, where we explain science in a way that even your grandparents can understand. I'm your host, Emmanuel, and with me is my co-host, Pat.
Hello, everybody. My name is Pat, and we're just so excited to introduce Allan Cuaresma to the podcast today. He's a heck of a guy. I'm a little biased. He's been a friend of mine for many, many years. He is currently the Suez sales manager for all of Canada, and Suez, they manufacture total organic carbon analyzers. So learn a little bit more about that. And he's been in the life science sales industry for 14 years now. So excited to ask him about, what his role entails and what piques his interest. And also, the goal for this podcast was to not only interview people from the lab in science, but also people in the industry, working in science, in the industry, in the corporate world. And obviously, Allan fits right into that world. So here we go. Let's do this.
Welcome, Allan.
Yeah. Hey, it's really good to see you again, man. It's been a long time. I can't even remember when's the last time we saw you. I saw you.
Yeah, it was last year.
Okay. That was more than that.
Hey, with COVID, it feels like it's been 10 years, right?
Yeah, that's right. We're aging more like at 3 or 4 times the rate.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, pretty much. I was telling Emmanuel that you and I met when we worked together at Fisher, Thermo Fisher Scientific. And then, I moved on to do other things, and you stayed for, I think, quite a few years.
Yeah, it's been a long time since we've known each other, since 2007. Thermo Fisher, I joined there in June 2007. I was there until July of 2019. And then I joined this other company called Suez. So Thermo Fisher, as I think in the scientific community would know, that they're a Fortune 500 or Fortune 1000 company. So it was a good experience. There was a lot of people. It's a big company. Got to meet people like yourself, which is a good and a bad thing, I guess. But
in your case,
but it was great. It was good experience. And I found, like, with some companies like Thermo Fisher, they give people that have little to no experience in, say, sales, an opportunity to grow, or give them a chance to get into, entry-level sales roles. So that was a great experience. I met some really good people along the way. I liked Thermo Fisher. It was good. Why I made the switch, I think a lot of people would like to see career growth over time. So when I joined Suez, they gave me a chance to become a sales manager to manage a product line called Total Organic Carbon Analyzers, or short form or acronym TOC, analyzers across Canada. Just this year, they also introduced this new product called Seaver's Eclipse. So we're trying to dive into the endotoxin analysis market as well. I focus on clients which would be considered in our life science vertical. So anything like pharmaceutical, biopharmaceutical, biotech, contract testing labs.
Hey, so I was always wondering, what is the difference between inside sales and like you said, outside sales? I hear those terms all the time, but I'm not in the area, so I'm not familiar with the main difference. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, I think in a nutshell, inside sales is, well, you're not face-to-face with the customer. You would be primarily doing your communications via email and phone. It's probably a lot more email nowadays. Email is probably the number one tool. It's hard to get a hold of people on the phone. I found even during COVID, it kind of accelerated that even more. Mm-hmm. Outside sales would be, again, you're probably at least 50% on the road, and you would be face-to-face with customers, with, again, some inside sales elements like, contacting your people by phone or by email to set up meetings, or now it's pretty much solely virtual meetings.
Very cool.
Yeah, I think COVID has pretty much blurred the lines. Like, everybody is inside sales now, because everyone is reaching everyone by Zoom or by email, by phone. The face-to-face thing is still pretty hard. A lot of accounts are refusing to accept sales reps at all. So we've all been turned into inside sales, which is all right, getting used to it. So I don't know if you've heard this, but in terms of like ways to communicate, right? There's vocal, there's verbal, and there's visual. Verbal is actually what you say in terms of the content, what you say. And vocal is pretty much how you say it, like the delivery. And visual is all your body language, you know, how you look while you're saying it.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, close to 70% of our communication is actually visual. And the second most important thing is vocal, is actually your delivery on how you say it. And so what you say, the content is the least important thing because communication. So, and when you become an inside sales, you lose visual, you lose the body language. So you're losing 70% of your communication with someone, right? So it's definitely much more challenging, but it also like allows you a chance to fine tune the vocal and verbal aspect of it, because you're just on the phone, right? I mean, I guess you can see visual clues on Zoom, right? But it's still not the same. Like it's still, I can just see Allan's beautiful face right now, but I have no idea what he's doing with his hands. He could be giving me the finger.
You don't see my hands.
No idea.
So how has COVID then impacted, I guess, business in that sense then, you know, because like you said, you know, some people love to interact with a sales rep visually as well. You know what I'm saying? That we like to see the individual in person. We learn a lot more, you know. I think, learning via emails or even through Zoom is a lot different.
Firstly, with COVID, it has impacted sales, I think, across the board, because I'm in close contact with my US colleagues. I'm part of the same team as them. Like we see ourselves as a North American team. Then we also work closely with our global counterparts. And it's impacted everyone. As far as I know, within my company, you can build rapport and you can get referrals still, doing virtual meetings or over the phone, right? But still, I think I'm old school, like a lot of other salespeople have been talking during COVID. Outside sales or being face-to-face, it's just to the next level. You can get still a lot of information. If you're a good salesperson or you have a good team with you, you can still be very effective, working remotely or from an inside sales perspective. Yeah. But outside sales, for example, if you go and face to face with someone or you get a meeting, well, you're usually could be even with a larger crowd, and that person, your contact, gatekeeper, anyone you want to refer them to, could just literally walk you to another person or another department you would need to talk to, right? If there's any products or other solutions you would like to introduce to the broader part of that company. Whereas virtually or by email or by phone, well, that's nearly impossible.
Yes.
And then it just adds even more time to try to get in communication with those people. Whereas, again, getting on site or face to face, you can get in front of those other people or get those other contacts almost virtually immediately.
I know it doesn't show on Zoom, but Allan has like the best voice, the best radio voice I've ever heard on someone. So if you were to call me, man, I would spend hours with you on the phone, buddy.
Step one in sales, right? You got to have a radio voice. So it's working to Allan's advantage, actually, right? Towards the more inside sales here, right? Turn off the video and let people just listen to your voice, and he'll sell everything.
It's so soothing, buddy.
Sorry, the audio is not that great. Oh, and with you saying that, I've gotten that so many times over the years, having a radio voice, or could maybe do radio or television. If you guys know that or know that secret or tips, just let me know. Give me a referral.
Sounds great.
There's a second career waiting for you, not too far.
Yeah.
I love Suez, by the way.
So Allan, why don't you tell me what Suez does?
Yeah. Suez is a big company like Thermo Fisher. They're based actually in France. Their company roots and history stem from a company that was responsible for building the Suez Canal, aka why the name Suez came along. But Suez is a large water company. They are involved, and they have their hands involved in so many different things. They're a conglomerate on anything when it comes to water technology and solutions. They do things from wastewater treatment, actually managing and doing contracts on that level. They even have a recycling group and division more based out of Europe. Anything that has to do with water or water treatment, Suez can pretty much virtually help out any customer from a products standpoint to services.
Yeah, so there's so much you can do with water in that sense. So who's the biggest customers in that kind of perspective? Is it more like the products are being used for mainly purification, sanitation, or are there applications? I mean, water is such a huge sector, really.
Yeah, and you hit the nail on the head, Manuel, because it's true. I didn't realize even to the extent how much water is involved in everything of every. We heavily depend on it for so many applications, and Suez is involved pretty much in all of those applications, from, like you said, all of the above, water purification to it's very important for cleaning. Water is even used in the micro electronics industry for cooling down, computers, or for microchip manufacturing. For what I do specifically as well, we have a big focus on is pharmaceutical water. So pharmaceutical waters being from not just making products, but for cleaning equipment is a huge one. So you want to ensure that, pharmaceutical grade water is free from TOC, or total organic carbon, from microbiologicals, any type of microbe. It's free from chemicals.
So Allan, what does total organic carbon do to, let's say, a potential product? Is it toxic to what pharmaceutical companies are trying to do in their end product, or what does it do exactly?
Organic carbon, it exists everywhere on the earth, right? And total organic carbon in many cases is not toxic at all to humans, but it could be potentially toxic. So detecting, say, total organic carbon in water, for example, it's not that specifically what's in it, what could potentially be in there. It's more of a technology to indicate and give you a warning sign that, there could be things in there. Every living thing and some other organic molecules give off some sort of total organic carbon. So if it's present on high levels, it could indicate, could there be plastics in the water? Could there be any type of bad microbial growth in that water, or microbes, I should say? One of those things like total organic carbon is important for the industry to just make sure that the water is at safe levels, especially if you're looking at drugs or things being introduced intravenously into the blood. TOC is a big no-no, right? So just in layman terms.
So what's more pure, pharmaceutical water? And I'm hoping you give the comforting answer, or like drinking water, like from the drinking water.
It's pharmaceutical grade water.
Well, I mean, there's a big difference, right? Because usually the pharmaceutical grade water, you don't have any of the minerals and all that stuff. It's like ultra pure, right? Is that the idea, right? Normally you got nothing in it. So if you were to drink pharmaceutical grade water, I think you can die, if I'm correct.
That's right. Yeah, you could potentially die, because in drinking water, there's a lot of different good, organic carbon or total organic carbon and minerals and chemicals that are naturally occurring or even added when it comes to fluoride into drinking water that is beneficial to humans, of course, right? But to answer your question, Pat, it's not pharmaceutical grade water that is actually probably the purest or the ultra purest. It's water that is used for microelectronics. It's even to a much higher level, lower level of total organic carbon and free and ultra purified water. It's not even in the parts per billion, it's in the parts per trillion. That can be even more highly reactive and corrosive to even metals or certain metals, and then extremely toxic, like what Emmanuel was saying, to humans, right? So you couldn't be drinking that water.
So what are some examples of carbon products that kind of get into our waters then?
Excellent question. In the pharmaceutical industry, cosmetic, even in probably food as well, would be cleaning solutions like surfactants, soaps could get into our products or into the water that's being used in production. So that's one big source of area for total organic carbon. Also, any residues from, again, manufacturing any type of drug product, whether it's in a liquid form, powders, solids. Those are big no-nos that you don't want to be showing up in a water sample, just in case, with product changeover, or, if you're making a new product on the same production line or in similar production environment, you want your water samples to come back clean or in a very low levels.
So has any family or friends asked you to buy one of these equipment, install in their home, so they can analyze the TOCs, especially with COVID now, there's reports about COVID ending up in like water, right? Like wastewater and stuff, right? So I can see, family members telling you, it's like, hey, hook me up. I want to get one of these and make sure my water is nice and clean.
Yeah. Some of my family and friends have asked questions about it. I would just say in a simple way is if you take one of our analyzers, which we do have analyzers that we sell for the wastewater treatment industry. Some of my colleagues on another vertical sell that. You would be coming up with a pretty high readings, probably in the ppm range, definitely above 1 ppm range, depending on what municipality or region you live in the world. And you would be probably coming up with a host of different stuff besides COVID.
So for the ppm means parts per million. Yeah. So you think that, do you think COVID would actually survive in water, Emmanuel? Like, what do you read that?
Well, I mean, there's reports how it's detectable in like wastewater and stuff like that. Right. That being said, the question is like, how is it being introduced into it, right? So I mean, and also detection methods and so forth. What are the levels and whatnot, right? So I mean,
it's not contagious though. You can't.
Yeah, I don't think you're gonna be like I don't think people are gonna get infected through that personally. Okay. Yeah. Studies are gonna have to really look into that. But I mean, yeah, being detectable is one thing, but whether or not you get it from like ingesting that water, that's different. I would say, right?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, not too much is really known about that. But I mean, it just kind of it's one of those things where gets people thinking like, hey, wait a second, we can detect this. I mean, COVID is just one microorganism you can detect. There's a whole host of different microorganisms that you can find in water, right? Really, that no one really talks about. Right. I mean, I read an article, a couple months ago. One of the top, I guess, how do you say it? Scientists, I guess, in the U.S. that kind of works with a lot of like, bioterrorism and all that stuff. They were saying, one of the worst places to go for a swim is like a Las Vegas hotel pool. You know what I'm saying? In there you got a lot of STIs. Sexually transmitted. Infection organisms that survive, that don't die in the presence of chlorine. They developed, resistant mechanisms and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I see that being a little bit more scary in my opinion, So it's one of those, places where you get a lot of high traffic, right? From people.
Yeah.
You're swimming in a pool and your water is bound to get into your eyes, your mouth. And then when you read something saying, hey, these organisms are resistant to chlorine, resistant to antibiotics, that's where I'm saying, whoa, you gotta be careful, right? In that sense.
Damn. Well, there goes my Vegas trip planned.
Just don't jump in the pool. But it's with any public pool, right? Not just Vegas, but.
Back that wetsuit, man.
Yeah. Maybe Allan can create some sort of portable Suez water purification pack or something,
That's right.
Yeah. Well, now that people are so used to wearing masks, maybe you have a device where you just hook it up to here and then you just go.
There's the water, right? That comes through.
Yeah. What I read though is that one of the most common compounds in drinking water, in tap water, is antidepressants that don't get filtered out, and that just so.
Possible.
It's crazy, man. It's crazy.
Like Pat, I was gonna say like what you were talking about with Emmanuel as well. Like The only other thing I saw was an interview on, I think it was CBC, and there was university professor or researcher at University of Windsor, I believe, was talking about testing wastewater for COVID-19. So, obviously you couldn't test it individually. Like, you won't know if it's our pee and poo-poo, right? Like for us, right? But at least they would know from a general scope from certain municipalities, maybe if they have a potential epidemic, or it's broader within the population, if they see a certain concentration of it in the water. I think that's where the goal was when it came to, measuring COVID-19 in wastewater, for example.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, so Allan, if people are interested in entering sales, I mean, not everyone can do sales. You know what I'm saying? I think there's a particular personality or characteristic. What do you think it takes to be a successful salesman in that sense?
Absolutely, yeah. It's great questions. I love getting those type of questions, right? Because like, if I'll give you a little bit of history of myself in the past, I was not really that open. I was more of I guess over time, maybe I've changed, but I was considered myself more of a shy introvert person when I was much younger. So I don't think it's any of that. I don't think it has to do even with personality, necessarily body language, other stuff, because you can develop that. I think if more people are, I think more when it comes to organization and being able to ask the right questions. Because when I even speak to people like, say, my wife, for example, some of my cousins, family and other family and friends, and I think people are so focused on when you talk about sales that you have to be savvy, right? Or it's the way you talk or certain words that you use. But I think it's much less simple. It's much more simple than that. I think if you can ask the right questions, you need to know your product as well. Get a grasp knowledge of what products or services that you're selling, and then being able to listen. I think it's hard for most salespeople to listen. I think those qualities more really make a great salesperson, because then you'll be able to, if you're able to get enough information from the people that you're talking to and you're listening to them, that you're showing empathy and you're caring for them, I think those qualities and skill set alone can make you very successful in sales. Maybe other people disagree, but that's my opinion.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you. I think customers can actually recognize who's genuine, right, as a sales person, or someone that's just putting up a show, right? I think that's the biggest turnoff. I mean, they don't realize that, right? Because a lot of customers, they notice that, it's like, oh, this guy's just kind of, huffing and puffing, just BS to me, right? They just want to close a sale. They don't really care about what I really want, right? It's funny. A lot of people know these things that we talk about right now, but yet they don't live by it. You know what I'm saying? People are still going to put up that fake show, right? People are still going to judge, unfortunately. So, I mean, it's kind of tough. It's kind of tough. I don't know how to change that, I guess, but people won't change, I guess. That's the mentality.
Emmanuel, like what you were saying, like, that's the important quality I find too. You're right. Like, you need to care about your customers. You need to, it's beyond caring too. You got to take care of them. You should follow up properly. I find that alone too, that, again, you bring up a great point, because that alone can just create a long-term customer with little effort too. And most people could do that if they just really put their mind to it and they actually really, cared about their job to do that, right?
Yeah.
And the other thing I was going to mention too that I forgot, being part of Suez as well, one other new sales methodology I've been learning is what they call the challenger sale. So, I think a lot of people would be afraid to do this, but this would be a good, I think another important skill set that salespeople should adopt. And it's not to challenge customers in an aggressive way or in a mean way, but salespeople shouldn't be afraid to, if you come across different obstacles, objections, or certain hard questions from customers, we should be able to challenge them with that, whether it's challenging with the technology we're offering to them, or our products and services, letting them know, well, or asking them why that's important to them, or why they are looking at this, or don't they find this is more important, or whatever the example could be. So I think that's another thing that I think a lot of people, it differentiates really good or excellent top end salespeople from others as well. And then you build that trust and that rapport more with that customer, because then they look at you as an advisor going, wow, they're not afraid to challenge me or ask me different questions, or to kind of point them to the right way.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
even knowledge of your products that you're selling, right? You see some sales, they may be newbies, right? They may be totally new, but they know what they're selling, right? And you got more experienced people that you're like, whoa, I thought this guy's got several years under his belt and he doesn't even know what the hell he's trying to sell me right now. So that's another turn off too.
We could do a whole podcast,
Yeah.
art of selling and being a sales rep. So, but yeah, I mean, it's definitely like you were saying, Alan, it's definitely a particular role, because you're kind of a lone wolf. So you need to be self-motivated, but your role is to talk to people. So it's kind of a dichotomy there, right? So how do you manage that? You're working home a lot alone, and then you're tasked into going out there. So it's interesting. I mean, another thing with sales is that no one really goes to university and thinks to themselves, damn, I want to be a sales rep. You know what I mean? That's what I want to do. I think 99.9% of the people that are in sales in whatever industry, they've kind of fallen into it, for, some that their path, their life journey kind of just fell into it. So that leads me to ask you, how did you fall into it? Especially selling within the science realm, right? Because, I don't know about you, but, studying science and stuff, this stuff is not taught to you. You're either like, you have two choices. You become a doctor and specialize, or you become a lab researcher for the rest of your life, any other option is just non-existent, And so I think that's a lot of reasons, especially in science, that people just kind of fall into sales as an alternative. But, me personally, I mean, no regrets. I mean, I'd rather, do this than anything else. But for you, Alan, what was your journey into that role?
Yeah, so I feel like the podcast title alone is really good for me, for hosting me today, because it's not so serious science. So I went into science, but I did want to become going into business or sales. So I fall under that small percentage of people that you're describing, Pat.
Yeah.
So that was my journey. So I love, science or technological things. I think that's why we all went into those, we went through those paths, right? But for me, I saw my long-term vision was to be in like a sales or business aspect, because I found my experience when I was in school that I like lab work, or, and I first broke off before getting into sales. I went into pharmaceutical manufacturing, which I found interesting. It was a tough job still, but I didn't want to go into research or work in a lab or be behind the scenes doing paperwork. I don't think that would have motivated me at all. I found over time, I became a person I needed to be more out and about and maybe interacting with people, or I like having the ability, like you said, Pat, you're a lone wolf in sales, specifically myself, and probably others can relate. And I like that ability. I like being able to create my own schedule, reaching out, and like what my direct boss says, in paraphrasing his words, it would be, I'm managing my own business in a way, right? I'm almost managing I'm a small entrepreneur managing my own business.
Yep.
So, and I think salespeople have to see it that way too. But yeah, that was my journey. Why I specifically wanted to go into. I could almost envision it during school that I was going to go down that path. So I'm glad I ended up, being in this field.
I was going to say, I think the two of you have mentioned a good point. I mean, we're not trained to go into sales, but it's a huge sector. I think, that kind of mentality needs to change, actually. There's a lot of different fields that we are never taught in school or never told to pursue. But I mean, a successful salesperson can make a lot of money. Like, I mean, if we're talking about, what drives people, right? Like, saying medical doctor, not a lot of people say they want to be a doctor because they want to save lives, unfortunately. Right? A lot of people say be a doctor because it makes lots of money. But you know what? In sales, you can make even more than a doctor. I mean, if you're really good, right? If you're passionate about your job, just like any other job, right? But the problem is, no one actually tells you. So if I were to ask the two of you, what are the top 3 things you enjoy the most or about sales?
Sure, I'll go first. So Manuel, you hit the first one. So that's a number one thing. If you talk about sales or business development, is salespeople in general, from low to high, are motivated by money, making money.
Right out there.
Right?
Yeah.
So you hit it on the nail.
What Alan's not telling you is that this is like one of his 10 rooms in his mansion.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
He's a very humble guy,
Yeah.
And don't even ask him, don't even get him started about what kind of cars he drives. I mean,
I know.
that's a whole other podcast.
Yeah. All right. So number 1 is money. What about number 2 and 3?
The other 2 would be definitely, I like the flexibility. So it gives me a good work-life balance. Some people don't like being, say, based at home, or some people wouldn't like traveling or being in front of different customers, or it can be nerve-wracking or whatever, but I like that aspect. So I would say, the flexibility of it, so to create my own schedule, and then also to see people and have that freedom and ability to move around. Yeah.
Awesome. How about you, Pat?
Yeah, you hit a lot of the points that I like as well. Another thing that I really enjoyed, and again, I guess it depends on the industry, but was especially if you're in outside sales, to actually go visit customers, and they would give you a tour of their facility, and really explain their process of what they do, and that's always fascinated me. And I've seen the inside of the Hershey's chocolate plant. I've seen the insides of the Coca-Cola plant, Sleeman's beer, Molson beer. I've had a tour of their production facilities, right? And like, who gets to see that? Nobody.
You should have called me up. I could be your assistant. I would love to check out. I would love to check out the breweries.
I know it sounds really corny to say, but when you help a customer out and they're really appreciative and they genuinely, thank you and are so appreciative of what you've done is awesome. I mean, to me, that's probably it for me in terms of like, helping out a customer and their recognition, and also like your peer recognition as well is huge for me.
Yeah, that satisfaction, of course. I think it kind of just speaks to, you accomplishing your goal at the end of the day, right? You're able to make that sale, but also make a customer happy, right? Because, they made the right decision based on what you told them about. But yeah.
Salespeople need to have integrity,
Yes.
You don't want to sell people stuff that they don't need, right? So
Yep.
A good sale. Another thing I would say, I just thought of it, I forgot to mention, is like a good salesperson should have integrity, and you're looking out for that customer. You do have a solution that is either better or it fits with whatever their needs are, right?
And sometimes that requires you not making that sale.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Just holding off and say, you know what, this is not for you.
Yeah.
Maybe down the future when your needs change, we can offer this solution, but right now it's really not for you.
Hey, that's actually a very good point. As a person that interacts with a lot of salespeople, you're right. The fact that if someone respects my decision, say, hey, you know what, I'm not ready to buy something from you yet, but then I do like that follow up. Every so often they follow up with me. It shows that they still care. And then eventually, when I do need something, of course, who's the first person that comes to my mind? I'm like, oh, that individual. They show sincerity, right? They show dedication, and they genuinely are interested in me as well, right? So I'm like, you know what? Now that I need something, this is the first person I'm going to go to, rather than the new people now. You see? So it does leave that positive impression, even though there's no sale happening now. As long as that person sees the big picture, the long-term goal, right? It always pays off. I find, right? It always pays off eventually.
Yeah.
Another thing I would just say overall to people is just, good communication makes you a great salesperson as well, whether it's good or bad news. The manager that I worked with, his piece of advice I always still remember to this day is he said, deliver good news fast, but deliver bad news faster. So, and salespeople should try to keep that in mind as well. If your customers have issues or if there's some sort of bad news, you should deliver it as fast as possible or work with them as quickly as possible to resolve it. And that will make you a better overall fit. And it's also, fulfilling that consultant selling approach as well.
Yeah, open and truthful conversation, no matter how bad it is huge. And that's something you learn over time on how to deliver.
Is there a bad side to working in sales, for example? Do you find it stressful? Because there's always, people always hear quotas, right? There's quotas and stuff. So what do you guys think?
It's a job that requires a lot of multitasking, right? So if you are typically busy, it's not like the salesperson that's waiting and twiddling their thumbs, waiting for a sale to come. It can be stressful. So for some people that, suffer from anxiety, for example, or very high stressful situations, I would say to be cautious with sales because, like you said, not just it's meeting quotas, but also you have demanding customers, right? Depending on the sales role as well, if you don't like traveling, right? For me personally, I don't have to travel constantly. And I wouldn't like that because I have young children and I have a wife and family and I like to be around them. So I would say to people, be cautious, do your research what that sales position is going to be.
Yeah, in sales, obviously you live and die by the numbers, right? Yeah. So there's pressure there, but I have a little bit of different take on it. The way I see it is that, it's no different than pressure with any other job, especially nowadays where everyone's stretched thin, there's a lot of layoffs. And so a lot of people are forced to wear, 2-3 hats. They got pressure as well, to perform. And so to me, I see it as no different. And, you just work hard and try to accomplish your goals like, an accountant or, project leader in the office or an operations manager would have to accomplish their goals, That's how I see it. Maybe it's a way of tricking myself to think it's not so bad.
Well,
it's worked so far. It's worked so far. So
yeah. Are you on social media or anything? If our listeners want to get some advice from you or ever kind of reach out with questions?
Sure. Yeah. Manuel, thank you for that shout out. Primarily LinkedIn. You can find me, Allan Cuaresma.
For all your radio stations out there, you can hook up with Allan on LinkedIn and he's offers.
Yeah, I'll send a demo.
Send this podcast as a demo. It's all good. Yeah. This will do it. Allan, thanks so much for doing this with us. We really appreciate it, man. You've been awesome. I think when I sent you that text, if you wanted to join our podcast, you didn't hesitate at all. So really appreciate you being such a good sport. And
thank you so much, Allan.
Yeah.
I personally learned a lot from you.
Invite me anytime, guys. Thanks for the invitation.
Well, one thing I can tell you, I'll never view water the same way again. I don't know if I can drink a glass of water with that same old feeling again, but hey, knowledge is power, right? Apparently. All right, brother?
Sounds great, Allan. Take care.
You guys.
Take care. Thanks for your time.
Nice being with you.
Thanks.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye. Yeah, he's like me. He's half Filipino.
Is that Filipino? Oh, yeah. Cool. What's the other half? Do you know?
I'm trying to think. English? Oh, I'm sure he told me. I just don't remember. Either I don't remember or I don't care.
All right, we're putting that into the final cut.
That's not important. The fact that he's an awesome guy and he's a good friend of mine, that's okay.
For sure. No, he was great, man. He was great. That's awesome.
I like your TNR hat.
Yeah, but
I have patience.
You got patience?
Yeah.
That's good. You got the hip sway. Yeah, that's good.